just review a little bit. I cleaned up my form tag here a little nicer, made it look a little nicer. And so I have a field set tag. We talked about that right at the end of class yesterday. I have an input tag for my name. I have an email address tag. And what was this grayed out text in here called? Placeholder. The placeholder information. Now that's an HTML5 attribute. So if you look at the source, and we look at our email, that's an attribute for the input tag called placeholder. So if the browser recognizes that tag, it will display that for you. And some browsers do it differently. So if I have Safari, for instance, it will display that in there, but when you click on the text to start typing, it takes it away. But you notice in, what am I in? Firefox does not. I'm clicking on here, it only takes it away when I start typing. So there's some differences in how it reacts, but that's browser-dependent stuff. You can't change that. But those are nice new HTML5 features. Another nice feature is, and unfortunately I can't show you in my Chrome. My Chrome still doesn't work, and I'm researching trying to fix that. But I'll show you in Opera. Opera is very good and cutting edge in terms of its HTML5 features. So, but they just don't have many people that use it. It has a religious cult following. It's Chrome that's not working. Yeah. All right, so here's Opera. Looks the same. When I click on the text, the placeholder goes away. So you see the little differences between the browsers. But another nice feature is if I try to type something into my email address and submit this, Opera comes back and says, whoa, Nelly, you need to enter a valid email address. This is all browser specific. The browser did that for me just because. Why? Why do you think? It's an email tag. It's not an input tag. It's an actual email tag, and so it knows that. And see the type equals email. So the browser treats that tag differently than just something up here and a name tag. So it doesn't think that that's wrong, but it thinks that my email address is wrong. So if I set it something like a@b.co, that's a valid email address, and it allows it. So it sends it through to my params, and I can see that information come back. So that's pretty nice. Let's try another one, another tag. No. We're going to do a number tag. If I look for my form tag in the API documentation again for Rails, there are a number of tags up here. One of them is the number field tag. So let's add that. And it has a bunch of options that I can add to this. So let's add a number that might be somebody's age, okay? So where would I add that? In my About Us in the view page itself. So I'm going to put in, and RubyMine nicely compressed this for me. So I'm going to add, I'm just going to copy this and paste in a new thing, and we'll call it age. And age as the name of the field. This is the label tag must match the name of the field tag, and we're going to call this a number field tag instead. And we won't have a placeholder, but let's use some of the other options that are available. Let's look at those. We have a min and a maximum acceptable value, or in a range, and also some granularity. Let's just do the min and the max. So the age tag here, we'll just add some options like the min is the key and the value. Let's say I don't want anybody under 13 in my site, and my max is I don't want anybody over 150. All right? So this size parameter, what do you think this is? I added this, but right, it's the size of the input box. You know, the physical size, how many characters I can put into that that actually show up on the screen. All right, let's see. So let's reload my Opera. Oh, I need to save this as a new thing like age. A new variable. All right, so now I have a new number field, and notice it has these two boxes here. This actually is an up and down arrow box. It changes the number, and see, it won't let me go below 13. I can't come in here and type 0 because it will say you have to enter a number between greater than or equal to 13 is what they figured out based on my min value. So that's an Opera thing just based on the tag. I can do that in any language. That's not a Rails specific thing. That's an HTML5 thing. So if I put in some values here like 149, and if I try to increase past that, it won't let me go past 150. Everybody see that? So I can submit my question again, and I get my new values down here in my age parameter from that number input tag, and it's set to 150. Yes? My age isn't sticky. Very good. How do I make it my age sticky? I put a variable in here. That's the value of the tag. So whatever I put into that variable will show up in the tag, in the input box. Where do I get that value from? From my controller, right? And it is sent to the variable, to the params hash. And to make it available in my view, I normally set these two variables, an instance variable. Remember that. Param sub what? Age. All right? So now if I reload this in Opera and put in a value of 50, then it comes back, it populates it with the sticky value that I retrieved from the post, and it's still part of my params hash, and I can get that value and do something with it, like store it in a database or send it out as an email, whatever. I have access to that data now. What was that? Sticky type stuff. All right, so that's all sticky now. All of my values are sticky. All right, any questions on that? All right, fairly straightforward. One thing that I find that I want to do here is that this is a really handy kind of a function. When you're working with forms, it's nice to see what the Rails application thought I sent it versus what I thought I sent it. So if I look at the params hash, I can see exactly what was sent to the controller. I can print that out and verify it. So it's a good debugging tool. Obviously, I'm not going to use this in production, right? Everybody understand that I wouldn't leave this on a page? All right, so let's, if I wanted to make this something that I could use on any page in my system without having to copy the code back and forth, I could make it a partial or a helper, either one. Okay, so I'm partial to helpers. So I'm going to make this, wasn't that funny? Yeah, I knew you'd like that. So I'm going to copy this and make it into a method instead. Where would that method go? All right, in my application helper, because it will be used on multiple pages, right? So I'm going to call it something like show params. Multiple views. It's going to be showed on multiple views. So I'm going to have this string that I'm going to create that is this div. Only the page, but when I start getting articles and things, it wouldn't be available. Right? Right. So I'm going to start creating my HTML here string. I'm going to add some stuff. Take away my ERB. And instead of making this general, how can I print out the values of my params? I'm sorry? Okay, because params is what type of variable in Ruby? It's a hash. So I can do something like params.eachDo and give it my goalpost. Hash takes how many? I got to spell parasm right. How many variables does it take? Okay, I need a key and a value. So key and a value. And I'm going to just keep adding to my HTML string something like the key and then my value. And I might put a breaking tag at the end of it. And that will print out all of my values for my params tag. And then I might want to add the HTML, my closing div. Closing div. And what's the last thing I need to do then? I need to return the string, but I have to return it as HTML.HTMLSafe. Because this is the name of the string. This is a method on the string that'll fix up all of the tags so it actually displays HTML. Like this? No, because if I did this, what would be set as HTML safe? Just the preceding string. Right? So I want to go through the entire string and force it to be correct. So let's go back, and how would I call that method now? All right, I can delete all of this information, and inside of here, do I use the equal sign or not? All right, why? So it outputs, right? That's my puts. That's my get the stuff out to the browser. So there we go. Isn't that nice? That's a pretty handy little method now that I could put on any screen or any view. How would I modify that to not display this? Okay, good. So something I don't want to do that. So I don't want to display that. So I'm going to go back to, and that's a good shortcut to show you. If I hold the Control key down and click on a method, it takes me RubyMine takes me to the definition of that method. Bada boom, bada bing. I'm right here. I can start to play with that. So I notice that I need to put a break tag here, and I only add this. I can put, these are called an if clause. What would I check? Right, is not equal to, and I'll go back and look at my thing here, authenticity token. So I'm just going to copy that here. So I'm going to add the key and the value only if the key is not the authenticity token. All right, so let's see what happens. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, that's called an if clause, an if modifier to a statement. It saves you having an if and an end. So you see that a lot in Rails. It's a shortcut again. So I want to get rid of this UTF-8 too. So how could I modify that again? How? Okay, or all right, UTF-8. All right, beautiful. Didn't work. Why not? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Ah, logic. You guys that are taking logic should know that, right? So I want to print that if it's not equal to that and it's not equal to this. So that's a logic thing. You guys should know that. Now we go. Now we got rid of them all. And that looks pretty good. Now that's a nice little function I can put on my page anywhere I want in my views. And that's a good debugging function. Now one more thing that I think is useful and something that you need to do in your page. If I go straight to my About Us page from, say, my link here, notice down here it's still showing the params hash. But I didn't submit any form here. So when you're displaying your values as part of the assignment, you have to put in a div the values that come through. I do not want you to do what I just did. That's a separate debugging issue. All right, you can use my function, but I don't want you to just list out the params hash. I want you to list out the name, the variable, and its value, just so you get used to knowing what the values are there and tying them back to the controller. So I don't want to display that if they didn't hit the submit button. How can I tell if the user came to the page from this GET request from the navigation versus hitting this submit button here? Okay, how? Good. It's exactly right. How do I do that? All right, so somehow I can tell, notice that if I went to the page without using the get, then there is no commit value in my params hash, right? If I hit submit, I actually get a value. That means I know the user had to hit the submit button. So there's lots of ways to do that, but I'm going to do that by checking the params to see if the commit was in place. So I'm going to do this here. I'm going to say if params sub what? Okay, the symbol for the commit button. Then I want to display I want to call my show params. Okay, why am I getting an error here? Well, that's part of it. If I could say if it's not equal to nil, which is the same thing, but that's not quite. There still is a problem with my if statement. So, yeah, so in ERB, I'm going to have to do this in 2 lines. Oops. Right, and I don't want to output the value of the if statement itself, and then I can say, oops, end. Yes, it is very redundant. So This would be the same thing. That should work as well. So if I come to my page through the nav bar, I don't see my params debugging at all. If I come to it by submitting the question, there it pops up again. Isn't that useful? Yeah, true. No, that's a different issue. If they hit submit and nothing shows up, that's an error in your form. You have to notice that they didn't submit anything and display a different error for the user. Okay? So that brings us to a different problem. Before we get into that, any questions on what we have here? All right. So, yes. You want me to use a drop-down menu? All right, let's do a drop-down menu. I hate to, because it's writing so much code for you. Ah, throw you a bone. All right, so let's modify my thing here. All right, so I showed this, I think, after class. Somebody was asking me about, and I still don't want to get into these yet, but this is a way of setting up variables that I can use across these methods, across these actions. Because every time the browser comes into the controller, this is a new instance of this class that gets created. So remember when we created a new jukebox or a new whatever last quarter, a VCR or DVD, we had to set some certain variables in our init method. Remember we used the init? But this doesn't have that same type of feature. Actually, I've never tried it. We might be able to use an init. But Rails likes to use these methods that get called for every request. So a before filter says, before every action in this class, call this method, setup. Now, if I call setup, and I'm creating a new instance variable, that instance variable is global for that class, for that instance, for that creation of this particular page controller object. When the controller finishes and it sends the data back to the browser, that instance gets destroyed again, so that it doesn't hang around between requests from the browser. So I have to establish that every single time. I have to get the value if I want that to hang around across the different methods. So that's one way of making an instance variable available to every one of these methods. So I don't have to do this now. It's now established for me. And in my About Us page, I can assume that products is available. All right. So on my page, just to show you that, I can print out my products hash. Let's do at products.inspect. Right? Let's reload the page. Let's go to it from a get. And this is the value of the product. So it was created for me, even though, if I look at my controller again, even though I don't establish it in this method, this is the only method that got called, because I have this before filter, it says call setup first, so that's my down here, sets up this instance variable, then it sets up all the rest of this stuff and calls the view for it.
So if you use a before filter in the application controller, will that be
Called for every controller, yes, yeah, right, which is useful for authentication, for instance, yeah. Okay, So here's my products. Let's go look at the tag. The tag to create a select box is a little more complicated because let's look at my select tag here. A select tag takes all kinds of information, and it's a little more complicated because a select tag not only has the select tag itself, but inside of it, it has an options tag for every single option that shows up in the pull-down menu, right? So we have to take, what's nice is if I have an array of this information, then it will create some of this information for me. See all this option 1, option 2, I can do that manually. So let's just do that one tag just to show you that one. So inside of here, I can put a select tag inside my ERB tags. And let's see what it looks like when I reload it. And I have my pull-down menu with the different options. All right, so that's one way of doing it. But you see that I had to physically put in the HTML for that, which is not very nice. I have to actually write an open option, close option, each tag, put through here, and then call HTML safe on it. So that's not the best way to do it. So they have another method here called options from collection for select, which is complicated. It's a long name. So if I go and look for this code here, let's just print that out and see what we get. Options for collection from select. So let's go down here and print out some stuff. Options from collection for select. The collection is what? My products. And then I'm going to have an ID. Let's see how they did that. I have an ID and a name. All right. All right. Let's just see what this does. All right. So that's 3 parameters. It's a collection. So let's see. It operates differently depending on what you pass it. All right, so I have a problem with this. Yes, that's the thing. So there is no method called name. So my products are called what? This gets complicated. Let's see. I don't really have a hash here. I have an array. So I need a hash for these. Okay, so it's complicated. Let's see. So let's change my products here to be a hash, and we'll do it the old-fashioned way, where I have an ID. I could have one as the skis. I could have, let's see. I wasn't going to get into this today, obviously. Let's see, 2, going to have boots. Thank you, Ryan. 3 goes to, let's just do this. I was going to do it tomorrow, but I could have told him no. Now you get to see me struggle through trying to get this to work right.
Dave, you need to learn to say no.
I do. I should wear my shirt. It's outside the scope of this class, right?
Watching you struggle laugh.
You like to see me struggle?
It makes us feel better because it lets us know that we're not the only ones struggling.
Ah.
Yeah, you are. Instead of a robot. This isn't robot programmer.
It reminds us that you're human.
All right. It's even more confusing. So it's not a hash either. It's a double array. So let's just do a double array here and show.
Physically put a double array.
If I put, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So if I have an array with an array of stuff in it, and I'm going to have something like let's do skis and the value, the option value, and then we'll have polls as another element. You guys remember double arrays from the maze?
Well, not the maze.
And then we have another double array with mittens.
Mittens wrong.
3.
That should be enough to demonstrate.
All right, so I have a double array with an element that has the value to display and the value to pass from an element, because in a select box, it passes the information versus what is displayed in the text box. They can be different. All right, so let's see what we get. We could see if we get this right here. No. Unexpected, yada, yada. This is, oh, that was in my page controller. So that's up here when I was playing around with this. All right. That doesn't affect this right here. Undefined method name for skis. All right, so we don't.
So it doesn't like being passed an array, a hash.
So we don't need this for now. That's another way of doing this. And then we need which one is selected. We'll have the second one selected. Should be right. Yeah. Yeah. See, that's different than what I used to do. That's
Do a select tag.
yeah. Options for select. This is a different method. All right, let's do it this way. We'll do it differently tomorrow. After I have time to play with it a little bit. All right, there we go.
Wait,
this is
that's your hat. That's it.
yeah, this is it here.
That's in the wrong spot.
So I didn't, but this is what it created. This options for select, which is a different method. Oh, that's interesting. They won't let me enlarge that. This is the HTML that was created. So it has a value of 1, 2, or 3, and then the value that gets displayed between the option tags. So then if I put that inside of this select tag, sheesh, instead, and we'll definitely do that differently.
It's good because I'm confused.
if I look at, yeah, I know. That's what. Oh, I lost my opera. Doggone it. We'll just go here. All right, so now I got poles, skis, and mittens. So if I select mittens and select, I should get a value down here of 3. So this was the name of my select box, was called count. And the value that was submitted was a 3, because it has to submit something. So if I called this could have been product. And then when I select and submit this, oh, what happened?
Try reloading again. That happened.
So anyway, whatever I select here, that number, that value gets submitted back to the page. So now I have product as 1 because I selected the first product. All right. Yeah, we're going to do this differently, so that's what I did. Yeah, it's. The select box is probably the most complicated one to do. Yeah, it's used a lot. So we'll do it differently where we can pass in a collection that responds to stuff better. We'll do that tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, I could have passed skis here too. Is that what you're saying? And then it would pass that string instead. But when we get to models, what we want typically is the ID of the product. So it's going to be a number typically. But anyway, we'll do more tomorrow.